This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team, and I'm here with Kathryn Rodgers from
Face to Face HR Newcastle.
Face to Face. Sorry, I kind of got stuck on my own teeth there. And we're here to talk about employer brand, which is different to marketing brand, but it's brand with regards to recruitment, retention, and all of those things.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's your topic. So
okay,
give us a brief intro, and then we'll get on to it.
Okay, so I mean, employer brand fundamentally is about how you talk to your ideal candidate. So obviously, marketing or client branding is all about identifying who that ideal customer is, where they're going to be, how you want to talk to them, how you want to attract them. It's the same principles, so it is very there's a definite marketing angle there, but instead it's talking to the ideal people that you want to come and work for your business.
Because most people, whether you're a marketing expert or not, if someone sat you in a room and said, do half an hour on perfect client, where you're going to find them, what you should say to them, what they look like, what they do, come up with a profile and then how you're going to get them. Most people can come up with a lot of fairly obvious things. Mm-hmm. Not least starting with who's your ideal client, but most people could do that if they had to. They don't always do that, but they could. Mm-hmm. But people probably don't always apply that. They just think, well, we're an accountancy firm, we need someone who's an accountant.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But there's lots of different types of accountants.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I think you have to be a little bit careful about trying to drill down too much, because obviously with your, from a kind of employee equality and diversity perspective, you can't say, well, our ideal employee is a particular gender or a particular age or a particular background. So it's not necessarily about identifying those things.
I was thinking more along like personality traits, do they fit with your behaviours, and are they the right people?
Yes. Yeah. So it's about trying to get to the bottom of that. And I mean, this is kind of something when I'm working with my clients, this is something I'll always try and look at, because if an initial client inquiry comes in, the first thing I'll do is go and have a look on their website, try and figure out how they are talking to their customers. Do my homework. And I had a particular client a little while ago who they were a photography studio. They specialise in boudoir and burlesque. So you go on their website and there's all these amazing images and brilliant testimonials from their clients about how empowered they feel and what a positive experience they had. Then when they bring a new employee on board, they get a very kind of authoritarian sounding contract and an 112 plays.
I thought this was a burlesque photography studio.
I thought this was all about empowerment and enabling and confidence.
I feel like I signed an NDA with the American military or something.
Yes, and it's just a bit jarring from an employee engagement point of view. We're in a bit of a weird recruitment market at the minute, because I think there's still skills shortages. It's still hard to find good people, and I don't think that I think that's fairly consistent across a lot of roles.
It's probably always been hard to find the best people.
Yes.
So whether it's hard to find people to fill any role, the perfect person has probably always been hard, hasn't it?
Yes, I think so, yeah. But we've got that skills shortage angle. Then we've also got cost of living, concerns about recession, when naturally people will be a bit more cautious about moving to a new job.
I've already got a job, why would I move? I might not like it, might not stay, might not pass probation. I'll stay where I am, and at least if I get made redundant, I'll get some money.
I'm not 100% happy. I'm not, loving every second of my working day, but it's secure, and I know that I'm going to be able to pay my bills. So then the onus on, if you are recruiting and you do need to find that great person, being able to express clearly why they should come and work for you, and what's great about your company, and why, what your values are and what they're going to get, is even more important. And if you can't do that kind of coherently and consistently across your employer messaging, it's just going to make finding those great people even harder.
How do you find that when you say that kind of thing to someone, then Kathryn, they say, what is good about what I do? What is good about working here? Do people have that inward look and kind of go, I know I should work here. We've got that with this kind of people, and we've got this feel. Do people know that, or is this something they have to work on because they're not used to it?
Okay, I mean, it depends. I think some businesses will say, you know, we haven't defined our culture. And it's like, well, you might not have defined it, but you still have one.
Well, there is a culture, whether it's that's what I mean. So
sometimes it's about drawing that out with them and saying, okay, well,
you have to draw. That's what. You have to work with them and say, like,
and talk to them about, well, okay, well, tell me, you know, when you talk to your friends and your family members about what working here is like, what do you say? How do you feel on a Sunday night before you go to work on a Monday morning? Sometimes doing that with just the business owner.
Imagine the job advert based on that. If you want to feel like the world is ending every morning, then come and work for us. Yeah, it's probably Sunday night's probably, I know what you mean though.
Yeah.
Because not everyone dreads Sunday night, Monday morning, do they? Not everyone does.
No, and I think if you can get that message across, you know, your job advert is your first opportunity to engage with people who are potentially going to work for you. And if you can capture some people who have the same values and share that kind of purpose, the recruitment process will run more smoothly. They're more likely to, you're less likely to get dropouts between offer and start date, because sometimes there can be a lag. They're going to feel more positive and more engaged on their first day. You can then make sure that all builds through in your recruitment process, your onboarding, and just make it a more consistent process.
How do you get the balance then? Because starting at that, toy factory, you still need to know all of the proper detail, don't you? Mm-hmm. You still need the formal contract the day you start, and it can't all be, fun and games. So, how do you strike the balance? And also the advert, that there are things you should say in there which you can't really not put in there just because you're trying to be fun. You need
and I mean, I would always say in an advert you need to give people as much information as possible to self-select. So I know there's quite often debates on social media about, do you include salaries or not? I would say always yes, even if it's not a specific salary, have a range. Because otherwise the potential for misunderstanding is so huge that you don't need to waste that time. So make sure you've got a salary. I mean, I'm thinking about, I helped a client of mine write an advert for a warehouse assistant job. And rather than try...
Want to stack boxes all day? Well, get your 10,000 steps in?
Well, it opened with something, let's be honest, it's not glamorous. You're not going to be wearing a pinstripe suit flying around the world, but you are essential to the business. And if you're not here to make sure things are going out, then everything else falls over. And it was about sort of tapping into that. You might not want the high-flying job or the big job title that you can brag about to your mates to the pub.
The front person of it is,
but if you get what great operations looks like, if you care about customer service, if you know how important it is to you that when you order something, that it, you get that acknowledgement.
It wasn't kicked around a warehouse floor before it got to you. And
it's not lobbed over your back gate and or left in your recycling bin.
Thrown on your conservatory roof and all that kind of
so it's, I guess, really thinking you start with the values, but then you taking those through and thinking about, well, what is the individual role? How are those values reflected in behaviours for that particular role? What sort of person do we think is going to excel in that position? Because we're all much happier if we're doing jobs that we're good at and that we enjoy.
I would imagine. I've got no idea. To be fair, I've always been blessed. I've loved my job for years. So it's quite hard for me to imagine what it must be like to turn up every day at a job that you really don't like. But also I can then see why people wouldn't apply for a job if it doesn't even sound good in the advert.
Yeah.
Or good's the wrong thing. We'll assume all jobs could be good.
Yeah.
If you don't even align your advert to the kind of person who would find that job
sound right for them,
more interesting, then you're never going to... I've never thought about it from that angle. Why the hell would you apply for a job that... I presume you could get that wrong as well, though, couldn't you? Because just as you shouldn't... Just as you've got to be careful in the toy factory, it's now a toy factory, not a burlesque shop.
Okay, that's fine.
It's too hard for us to keep saying. So the toy factory with a boring ad, you can't have like an unbelievably exciting advert for a boring job. That would be just as jarring, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yes, and I think it's about clarity and honesty, really. And again, thinking about, well, who do I want to talk to? In the same ways you would for your client marketing. Again, you're thinking, well, who do we ideally want to talk to here? And get the tone and the wording and the content right for them. And it does take a bit more thought, but it means when that advert goes out there and appears on the job boards,
it's more likely to attract people.
Yeah, instead of it being a copy and paste job description, which is, typically things like, we are looking for a dynamic, motivated individual to join our fast-growing, passionate team, and it's just, fluff.
Yeah. Most teams I've seen aren't dynamic, fast-flowing or passionate, to be fair. Certainly anyone on the other end of a phone, normally you can tell it's quite obviously not that. One of my favourite job adverts ever, and I probably should have tipped you off that I was going to mention this, was the Ernest Shackleton going on the expedition thing like 100 years ago. Have you seen this?
No.
I kind of wish we could pull... We might cut this out, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly pull this up in real time, and I'll show you this. We'll just leave this in. But I'm sure it was Ernest Shackleton. Advert, here we go. Oh no, cut this out if you need to, James, but I've got it. So that was the job advert. We can overlay this on the screen as well for anyone.
Yeah.
So this job advert, men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honour and recognition in case of success. And this was to go on, I think the ship was called the Endeavour, and it was like a cruise, not a cruise. It was a cruise ship, yeah. And I think it was a voyage or an expedition to like the Arctic or something like that, And apparently, I don't know how we know this, but apparently, the option was able seamen needed. It was 100 years ago, we're allowed to say men, but now it would say people needed. Able seamen needed, must be able to navigate. But the tale is he was worried that he was going to get people who were sailors, not people who wanted adventure and expedition. So he just leant completely the other way and went, there we go.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, he ended up with like butchers, candlestick makers and all kinds of applying who just had the energy and the excitement.
And wanted an adventure.
And wanted the adventure. Because you can teach someone how to tie a knot. I know you need to be able to do the basics, but so that's like my greatest, I love that. And I saw, I think it was the Explorer Finds, I can't remember his first name, but he was talking about it and he referenced this and you're like, yeah, well, because you want the right people, don't you?
Yeah.
So you haven't wrote anything quite as exotic as that.
Not as exotic as that.
Because it didn't even say what they were doing there, really. But yeah.
No. I mean, I did one for it was a exec PA, where I think I started it with "Are you our next Mary or Marty Poppins?" And we did actually have a candidate ring up and sing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Well, you found your soulmate there. Well, there's a good chance, isn't it? Yeah. I like that. Because we're seeing now, is it worth talking about the application process as well then, Kathryn? Let's assume you can get a good advert.
Yeah.
And Mary Poppins has sat there and went, well, that must be the job for me.
Yeah.
Can the actual application process put the right or wrong candidate? Like, can that filter the... Because if you wanted something... So when we were recruiting for James, the producer now, sent in a video. Because we knew we wanted video to be part of the skill set. And we thought, well, we may as well test that by getting a video. And it seemed to make sense. We don't do that on most of our other jobs. And it might be a little bit weird. I mean, we could, but give us an example of you adding some stuff up. Wouldn't be a very exciting video. But is there a mission here to get the actual process right as well?
Yes, yeah. Because again, if you've got a really well-worded advert, and then you for a role like a producer, and then you drop into a very traditional, fill in a CV, do some selection tests, come to 3 different rounds of interviews, wait weeks and weeks for feedback, that kind of thing, then you've lost the engagement that you
got.
Dynamic,
passion.
Well, and you've lost that engagement that you've hooked somebody with your advert, and then again they've come in and thought, well, actually you're not who you say you are. This isn't consistent. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm not so interested. Maybe I don't want to take the risk. Maybe I'll go and look somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's no sort of legal standard that says in recruitment you have to follow these steps.
Yeah, you've got to reply within, well, it's just not, is the...
Yeah. So...
I mean, I suppose it's worth clarifying, they're all legal things you have to do.
Yes.
But in the recruitment, choosing who to recruit, there aren't. There are things you can't say, but I don't know if it's worth mentioning them, but we'll assume people aren't putting racist, sexist...
Well, yeah, obviously you can't, you've got to bear equal opportunities in mind and make the opportunity, make your roles as accessible as possible. I mean, the opening line there, able men. Yes.
You probably couldn't put either of those words in now. That would be an interesting one, couldn't it?
If there was a genuine occupational requirement...
I suppose it would be hard to sail a ship if you... Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious example is when if you're a family-run Italian restaurant and you ask for, people who can either speak Italian or have some sort of Italian connection, then there is a genuine... if there's a genuine occupational requirement, you can ask for certain stuff.
I thought they just had like a finishing school where you learned how to put an Italian accent on.
Yeah, well, I think that sometimes that might be the
I'm sure that's happened on some...
Yeah, when you're thinking you're about as Italian as my left arm.
I've met some people in Italian restaurants I would question their heritage,
Yes, yeah. And I mean, when it comes to interviews, I think one of the questions I've got an employment law myths quiz that I sometimes do at networking events. It's thrilling, as I'm sure you can imagine.
I bet you I can trump it with the tax quiz.
We'll have to do a double act.
Saying that we're going to have a thrill off at the next marketing event we're both at,
Yeah. And one of the questions I include is, can you ask people about childcare in interviews? And you can, as long as you ask everybody.
Yes,
you can't only ask the women.
Oh, hold on.
So as long as you ask everybody and it's consistent, and I wouldn't make it kind of one of your core selection criteria.
Yeah. I mean, she's not a qualified accountant, but she doesn't need childcare.
Great.
Oh, okay. So, do you find as well, then, Kathryn, because just like with marketing towards a client, it doesn't end with the advert, and we've already talked about the application process. But again, I mean, even asking the wrong kind of question, is that quite important then? Because you said put the time in, get the right advert. Mm-hmm. I suppose you should also put the time in and get the interview right as well.
Yes, yeah. Think about how the process is going to tie together. Again, that consistency is really important. I think we're sort of moving away from traditional kind of competency-based questions of give me an example of,
just aptitude tests.
And trying to really get to what are people's values? Do they share our values? Is that there?
How do you test those things then? I mean, I know what we do. So we have 2 interviews now. We have the core competencies that people have to have. That's done, and then 2 separate people from our interview panel will say, we're going to meet you and see what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
And if there's 3 people all of able, skill and experience, etc., then you pick the one who you think's going to be the better fit. Mm-hmm. But I know, we're a reasonable sized place where we've got the resource we can do that. How would someone do that if you're a single person taking your first employee on? This might all sound really daunting.
Yeah, and I think if it is, I mean, having done that myself in the summer, I've got Jenny on board with me now, and I think when it is your business that's been just yours, and you're kind of a bit protective over it, finding that right person and trusting that they're going to do what you want it is a big step. In any interview process, and whatever combination of selection methods you use, you never really know what somebody's going to be like until they actually start doing the job. I think the predictive validity of interviews is about 0.4. Obviously, being the closer to 1 you get, the stronger.
I was going to say, is that out of 100?
No,
it's less than 0.5%.
Out of 1.
Right, okay.
So yeah, it's not a brilliant indicator of. So somebody could do an absolutely smashing interview, but you don't really know until they join.
Best behaviour on day 1.
Yeah, and that's about, again, not linked.
It's the first time you meet your mate's kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're lovely. Second time they're kicking in the nads. It's like, oh, okay then.
Drawing on the walls and all that.
It's like, all right, okay then.
Yeah. And I think that's where, it's not just getting the advert right or getting the process right. It's then, okay, well, what does our onboarding process look like? What happens when somebody joins on their first day? Do we have a probation period? What happens during that probation? Are we really clear that actually that's for both sides? That's
see if if you don't like us, we kind of need to know that as well.
It works both ways, and how are we going to understand that, and how are we going to check in with you during that time to make sure that we are headed where we want to, and if we're not, what are we going to do about it?
Because it's interesting that a lot of these things seem hard, but communication solves most of them, doesn't it? You can just say, do you like this kind of thing? Because we don't want you to come here and just say yes because you've got bills to pay at the end of the month. Because everyone's got bills to pay and there's loads of jobs. We don't want to just take you because, but also we don't want you just to accept the job just because. And you can just presumably be just a bit honest about it, can you?
I mean, it's one of the things I say to my clients all the time is you can always have a conversation.
It doesn't have to be a script. You can just talk to people.
Is it all right to talk to somebody about this? It's like, yes. It's always okay to say, I just wondered, and I think for most issues, even sensitive stuff, if you approach things from a position of genuine curiosity and wanting to understand, you can't really go too far wrong. You're very unlikely to upset somebody by wanting to understand their needs and their perspective and their goals. Sometimes, preparing for that kind of conversation, if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable about it, is important. Don't go wading in, because that's when people do say the wrong thing.
Just blunder into it.
You can always have a conversation.
I mean, not quite on point here, but how long should an interview take then, would you say? Because it would be great to spend 5 days with someone and get to know them inside out, but you can't.
You can do work trials. You could say, right, okay, well, we think, from everything we've seen of you in the process so far, and obviously that works better for some jobs than others.
Also for some people.
Yes.
If someone's got a full-time job, they might not fancy using a week's holiday to come and have a work trial.
Come and do, so it's about what's suitable in the individual circumstances. But you could say to somebody, right, come in and spend a day with us and the team, and see how you fit and see if you like it. You have to pay them for that. Really important to point that out. You can't just say, come in and give us a day's free labour. Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't successful.
You can't breach minimum wage regulations.
Because I've heard of that happening before.
I love the old intern thing as well. I don't know how people get away with internships now. I just don't think you can. But
I think it depends. I think that there's, I feel like I say it depends a lot. It's a typical HR answer to this.
I'm glad we cleared that up. Right, okay. Thanks. I think morally, I don't think you should get people to work for free anyway, morally. But anyway.
No, I think if it's an internship that's working as part of a degree programme and there's some funding there.
Sorry, yes, work placement, I think. So this just, you finished your degree, come and work for us for nothing. We'll see what happens.
It's great experience.
Experience doesn't pay the bills, as they say.
No.
So have you got examples, or could you give us some examples of of things that really do just say the wrong thing? Because there's probably people out there who've got adverts out there and think, hold on, there's more people looking for jobs than there are jobs. Why am I not getting applicants? What are the classic mistakes people make? You mentioned salary. It's probably worth a band. So just saying competitive. Well, what does competitive mean? For who?
I think, I don't know if it's still true, I'd have to check, but I know at some point last year it shifted from there being more people looking for jobs than jobs available to more jobs than people looking.
Right.
And that's the first time in probably 20, 30 years that's happened. I'd have to check and see if that's still accurate or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. So there's not including a salary.
How do you get around the salary issue then, Kathryn? Because if you're looking for a level 3 at the civil service, there is just a pay bracket. If you're looking for your first employee and you say, well, ideally these are the things you would do, but if you get someone who can do way more than that, you might offer them a different job to the job you imagined, or you might not have a fully formed job. How do you get around that then?
I guess...
So I might be looking for a plumber's mate. Like, well, I don't know yet if I just want them to put my tools in and out of the van or fit radiators. And they would be different pays in my example. How do you do that?
Realistically, if it's a plumber, an experienced plumber who's running his own business, he's going to have a rough idea of what the market rates for those kind of jobs are. If he's not sure, then that's where I guess having talking to other people in the trades is really helpful to say, okay, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Do you do that? What do you pay? You know, do you use subbies? Have you employed somebody? Understanding the different options that are there before you decide what's right for you. And if you put it out at a range, so if you start at what you would expect to pay somebody who is literally just ferrying tools from the van versus what you would expect somebody who can do a bit more,
you may get
then you can flex it.
Yeah.
Or if you interview someone you think, you know what, you're brilliant, you've got loads of potential to do more, then you make that part of the conversation when you come to the offer about, okay, well, you'll start on this. But I think you've got loads of potential. I'd really like to see you picking up and developing and doing these skills. So we'll build a review in at this point. You know, if you've achieved all of this by the end of your probation, you'll go up to this much. Obviously, allowing some discretion in the contract as well. but also making sure they're clear. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. So salary's the first thing. What else are people just getting wrong all the time?
I think when it is just a generic cut and pasted job description, and it could be any business.
So just hides amongst all of the other jobs because why would you?
So try the same as you would with with an advert to your customers. You want something that's going to make them stop, because again it goes back to all of those things about when people are scrolling online. You've got about 3 seconds to capture their attention. So you want something that's going to grab them, and they might then read through and think, okay, well, I read that, but actually, based on everything else you've said,
it was clickbait.
Yes, it's not for me. And I think making sure that you have got a summary of the duties of the role, that you're clear about what your values are. If you've got really great benefits, then shout about them. You know, if you've gone above and beyond, particularly as a small business, because often all they can afford to offer is statutory. So
but if you can't pay more than standard into a pension, or you can offer more holidays than normal, or you're prepared to be more flexible than the industry norm is. I mean, I hate it when I see company laptop and mobile phone included as benefits. It's like, no, they're tools for me to do my job. That's not a benefit. That's so I can do my job. It's like get a job at Sports Direct and saying till provided.
Yes.
Well, of course it's. What was the alternative? Bring me your own till.
Yeah. I mean, if you provide really whizzy, if you're going to give them a brand new MacBook,
you might say, but
you might mention that it's top of the range equipment.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would rather just have more money in their pocket, unless they needed that top of the range equipment. What there was something just gone through my mind as you're saying it there, and it's gone. Have you got because we've talked about making sure your advert pops, salary. What else has to be in there? We've got the duties, responsibilities. Mm-hmm. What are people putting in there that they shouldn't be putting in there? Then do you see something going like, why have you said that? Well, I remembered the question, but I'll let you answer that one first.
I mean, nothing. I think people are wise enough to the kind of equality and diversity stuff to not put anything truly horrific in, where you think, oh gosh, that's going to get you in lots of trouble.
You can't. Yeah.
I think a lot of it just is very generic.
So it's not that they're doing anything particularly wrong. They're just not doing it right.
They're just missing an opportunity. Yeah.
The question that I thought of before was, you mentioned put your values and what kind of business you are. Surely nobody is ever going to say, come to a slow-paced, dire, boring, drab environment. So if everyone takes your advice and starts saying, we are this and we do that, it's like, are we not then going to just have another, that will become the norm and everyone would just blend into one again, won't they?
But I guess it's each to their own, isn't it? So, and a business that to you might seem slow-paced and dire, to somebody else they might be like, oh, that's really it's got a long history, it's well-founded, it's secure, it's stable.
Do you like routine?
I feel comfortable with that. That's what I'm looking for. Whereas other people are going to want some, they might want to take a bit more risk. So it's about looking at the individual business and thinking about, okay, well, who are you? What are your strengths? What works really well for you? Of the people who have done well with you, whether they're long service or whether they've kind of been with you for a short period of time, why have they been the right people? Why have they made the contribution that they have? And trying to get that across.
And imagine you're trying to recruit them again.
Yes.
Because this is the one thing I say to people about how to find customers. what does your ideal customer read? What do they watch? What do they listen to? That's where you need your thing to be, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And is that the same for jobs then?
I would say so, yeah.
Because everyone just seems to throw it on, you know, it's all about jump on Indeed
it's free,
and, you know, or cleaner wanted in, you know, it used to be in the post office notice board or the front of Asda or whatever. Mm-hmm. But again, not all workforces are reading all things, are they?
No, yeah, and absolutely think about where your ideal person is going to be. So it might be, put it on Instagram. You know, so different social media channels have different demographics. So think about, well, if we're going to talk about it, which one are we going to? You might put it on all of them, but which one are we going to focus on to promote this role based on where we think we're most likely to attract the right audience?
And although you shouldn't apply stereotypes, within reason you need to apply a bit of stereotype in there, don't you? You're not going to get a tenured, you know, historian lecture at Cambridge from Instagram. No. Probably I'll stress. So again, yeah, you might mention it on there, but you're not gonna go pinning all your hopes on that.
Yeah, we're going to spend the time advertising it here. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, think about where you're most likely to get the right results. You know, you're not going to, if you're looking for a marketing exec or somebody to promote your social media, you might do that on TikTok.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to put an advert in The Guardian for that and spend the money on doing it. And again,
the TikTok video, it should be representative, because that's where you can actually put your personality right in there. Mm-hmm. You can't avoid personality in a video.
No.
It's very hard to mask that, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've talked a lot about advert recruitment process. I think for me the really important bit is then you've done all of that. You've invested the time in your advert. You've gone through your interview process. You've found your great person. You've made an offer. How are you then going to keep them engaged from the point that they get their offer to when they actually join?
Of course, because the work doesn't end when they start.
Yeah.
Work begins. Yeah. Literally when they start.
Yeah, and depending on the role, it can be quite a long lead time from them getting that offer and accepting it to them actually coming on board. Yeah. I mean, some people it could be the next few days, but even so, I still think there's some key things that you should be communicating about. I mean, ultimately. So
just because we quite often take people on who've got a 3-month, notice. Shouldn't you be keeping in touch with them during that 3 months?
Yeah. I'd be thinking about what can you do in that time to make them feel like they're already part of the team when they land on day one.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got confidentiality to bear in mind. You can't share everything in the same way as you would if they were already working for you. But what key things might they be interested in? Are there any events that they could come along and attend to get to know the colleagues that they'll be working with?
Any socials, any mixers, any training you might want? You might be able to pay them to attend training in that period, subject to clauses with employers, etc.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even just kind of building check-in points in to say, it's 2 months to go. We're really looking forward to having you. Here's a picture of your desk. This is where you're going to be sitting.
Wow, that'd be pretty well prepared, wouldn't it? We've asked the person who you're replacing to get move, out of they're not in the picture.
I think on their first day, on their first day at a new job, most people want to know, how am I going to get there? So am I driving? Am I getting the bus? Am I getting the metro? If I am driving, where am I going to park? Yeah. What should I wear?
This is
what's the dress code?
It's so funny because we in our roadmap of things we're going to do is we're going to do that for clients who are coming here for their first meeting. Mm-hmm. So that's in our roadmap of something that we're going to roll out. I've never thought, but of course, someone coming for an interview even might benefit them.
Yeah.
So send them the instructions about how to find the damn place. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and where to park. Are you smart casual? What does that mean? I mean, again, if they've come in and met you for an interview, they'll have a rough idea.
Yeah.
But you're always going to dress slightly differently for an interview than you would on a day-to-day basis at work.
Of course, yeah.
Even down to if you think about bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, it's the kind of the really basic things like food, warmth, shelter. So is there a kitchen? Do people go out for lunch, or do they bring their own stuff in?
Yeah.
Should they bring their own mug, or are there mugs in the cupboard? Like really,
that would be a great thing to like almost drop out to someone in the post as a fly, like a little, say a leaflet, but a guide to your first day.
Yeah.
There's a fridge there, you can bring stuff if you want. There's a microwave, or there's a couple of shops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, we take people out for lunch on their first day.
Yeah. So same thing, don't worry about it. Don't bring anything with you.
Yeah. I wonder how many people have turned up with their lunch and went, oh, well, I'll just bin this then.
Be all right in the fridge until the next day.
Yeah, don't worry, we've got a fridge. Yeah, but okay then.
Yeah.
So Kathryn, we normally part with what's the one thing that people are just, and we've kind of done this a little bit, but if you had to give one more tip, one takeaway that people can, revolutionise their process if they adopt this thing, or stop doing the thing you're about to tell us. No pressure.
Oh gosh.
We'll put a drum roll in though.
Slow clap.
Yeah.
I guess don't is that just don't forget that you need to do this stuff. Don't forget that you need to.
So actually do it.
Yeah, actually do it. Yeah, spend the same amount of time thinking about how you would attract the ideal candidate as you would your ideal client. Because the thing is, if you get the right people working with you, will get more of the right clients.
The wrong, I'm sure you see it on the other way as well. The wrong person working with you is disastrous if you get it wrong. It can be horrific.
Yeah, and I guess leading on from that,
spend a bit of time, isn't it?
And leading on from that, but also remembering that we never really know until someone's on board. If it isn't right, deal with it.
With that honest conversation. Yeah.
With that kind of, and the sooner you do that, so, oh, do you know what? Not quite sure this is working out. This is how.
It's not fair to say someone on a 90-day probation, a 3-month, like, well, it didn't work out, did it? It's like, well, I've seen you 89 times. Why did he not? Why you've never mentioned any of these things. What the hell's going on? That would be a bit weird, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think that that first day stuff we were talking about, then you can kind of build that out into a plan of, well, what does that first 3 months look like? And you can make that as complicated or as simple as you want. I mean, for a previous business that I worked with, we did a lot of early years education, and we turned our joiner process into, we called it the New Starter Treasure Hunt.
Right.
And it was about...
You hid their laptop and you hid the stapler out of it.
No, we put a lot more focus on the individual, because again, the problem we'd found internally was that some people's induction was great, but it was very line manager dependent. And some would literally kind of show their new person around the building, then arrive at my door in HR and be like, so I've got my new person. It's like, and what would you like me to do with them? So you can build that out as much as you want. In that particular business, we split it. We only did it over 4 weeks. It was more of an induction than a kind of probation thing. And we gave the individual 4 things to complete each week. And the first week were things like go out for lunch with your team, make sure your details are correct in the system, go and introduce yourself to the directors. Just like simple tasks that they could do themselves. Leading through to the final week was, set your objectives for the year, and building into that longer term stuff.
I like that, setting the objectives, because we have checkups, appraisals, one-to-ones, but I'm not sure how long it takes before a new employee gets their objectives. Why not set them as part of that? And
if they've had involvement in setting them,
I don't mean targets here, sales targets. But why not set some objectives? That's not a bad shout.
And the more you can tie that back to what the company does, the more meaningful it's going to be.
Of course.
I mean, the other basic first day stuff is, make sure that somebody's not sat in the reception for an hour on their own. Make sure that their kit is there and ready.
Be open when they get there.
Be open when they get there. Don't leave them. Be expecting them. Be pleased to see them. Have their kit ready.
Don't ask who they are. Who are you again? I recognise you, but I can't.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all got stories of either jobs we've started or where friends have started, and you've kind of got there and the manager's been like, oh yeah, I know I need to get your kit, but it's not here, or I haven't got your logins, or
what's your first day been like?
It's not ready.
Well, nothing.
I've spent 3 hours sat around with nothing to do, because that's not a good experience for anybody.
No.
And again, there's added value things you can do there. Like again, that same business where we did the New Starter Treasure Hunt, we would do a welcome card that was signed by all of their team. We had a little New Starter pack that had a mug, stationery, a couple of little products that we did as a business, their name badge, their fob to get around the building, that kind of thing.
You kind of need those things. We can't get into the toilets without the fob.
Yeah.
Make sure they've got a fob.
If you're having to hammer on the door to get back in every time you go out, it's just a bit embarrassing.
So your key takeaway is do something. After you've listened to this, do it, please.
Yeah, I mean, whether that is you're thinking, okay, well, we're not doing this, let's decide how we're going to do it, or let's review what we're doing and see if we can improve.
And I presume if someone is a serial recruiter of people that don't work out, or they're an advertiser who never gets any applicants, I presume you'd be happy to speak to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if they're, a sole business owner thinking, oh gosh, I really need some help and I think I need to employ someone for the first time, but I'm terrified.
And I've got nothing in place.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Then have a chat. Always happy to help.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that was branding for employees or recruits, I suppose.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it. As always, we appreciate feedback. Leave comments in the comments below. Hit subscribe so you get the next episode. Meanwhile, thank you very much, Kathryn. That was brilliant.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.